The tale unfolds in the year 2047. For 25 years, the world witnessed the emergence of portals, which some referred to as Hellgates, that had sprung up across the globe. Earth had been forever altered, and humanity had changed, with the exception of one lone individual. This solitary figure cast an intense gaze at a monstrous being, steadfastly advancing towards it. The monster, however, met his glare without flinching. It reached for a sword and drove it into the ground, then bowed, offering its own head. As the man quietly contemplated the monster's severed head, he later found himself at a bar, a bottle of wine in his grasp. The monster's head, ever watchful, recalled the rumors of a human who exclusively targeted high-class demons, revealing a surprising truth. The monster's head inquired, puzzled, about the meaning behind it all. The man confided that he had much to share and was prepared to delve into the details. Soon, the monster's head was stunned when it realized that this was a quest of all things. The man confirmed it, stating that after humanity vanished, the one who pledged 666,666 high-class demon heads was none other than himself, Namgung. As he placed the head alongside the others, the monster's head branded him a madman. It inquired about his ultimate goal, and he revealed that he aimed to return to a pivotal moment to reunite with his daughter. The monster's head probed further, surprised by his seemingly simple reason. In response, he plunged a knife into the head, asserting that he endured a living nightmare for 25 years for that very reason. The monster's head wondered how other demons would react, prompting him to question what they would do about the situation. After all, those who had opened the portals and established this nightmarish world were the real culprits. The system, an enigmatic entity, revealed that the legendary quest had fulfilled all prerequisites for regression. He informed the monster's head that even these high-level beings were not privy to all the information and openly expressed his disdain for them. The system displayed that he had acquired a substantial number of demon heads, indicating that he had completed the quest. The demons began to disintegrate, and the system disclosed that he was the sole survivor on Earth. As the monster's heads were absorbed, he swore to vanquish anyone who dared obstruct his path. The system indicated that the quest was accomplished, and the Nexus was activated. A blinding light pierced the sky, descending upon the building where he stood, and in an instant, he was transported back in time. His hand trembled as he grasped the reality of his altered fate. He wasted no time, rushing to the door and calling his daughter's name, Salmon. His heart soared as he gazed upon her peaceful slumber, and memories of the past came flooding back. In those harrowing days when demons roamed, he had held his daughter's hand, preventing her from plummeting to her demise from a precipice. Her cries for him echoed in his memory. His broken body had strained to keep her safe. He had fervently prayed for someone, anyone, to rescue her. Then, a thunderous roar had shattered the air, and his daughter peered down, tears streaming from her eyes. Summoning every ounce of his strength, he had fought to hoist her to safety. But the demon had lunged, determined to consume her, leaving only the hands that clung to him. He had clung to her hand as she wept, her calls for him fading now. Salmon stirred, awakening in confusion. She called his name, but he remained concealed behind the door. Tears welled in his eyes as he knelt on the ground, overwhelmed by gratitude for her continued existence. His determination was unwavering, knowing that happiness was ephemeral. On the day the Hell Gates opened, the world would change irrevocably. For 25 years, he had lived only for himself, questioning whether he, a person like himself, could endure the nightmarish existence while safeguarding Salmon. But pondering the odds was futile. He steeled himself, his gaze locked on her door, resolute in his resolve. Pausing for a moment, he whispered, "Even if I perish in the attempt." The system's notifications broke his reverie. His status displayed newfound magical powers and spirit magic novice, along with level 1 spirit eyes. Bewildered by the persistence of his powers, he questioned if they were retained as a result of the altered timeline or perhaps a perk of a regressor. 3 days remained until the Hell Gates would open on October 11, 2022. Yet, the knowledge that the gates existed 3 days prior was not confined to a mere few. 8 chosen individuals, the 8 martial stars, were designated as humanity's saviors. These exceptional beings displayed remarkable growth. Retracing 25 years of memories, he realized that he could now achieve the accomplishments and reap the rewards that had previously eluded him. October 8, 2022, was the date, 3 days before the gates would open. Now, he was poised to seize control of the underworld. As he ventured forward, he encountered a sign that prompted him to enter. The old man inside was taken aback, remarking that he hadn't expected any visitors. Smiling, he inquired why someone shouldn't be there. The old man, Yaksha, sought to understand his purpose, and he declared that he had come to make a purchase. Inexplicably, a massive hand suddenly seized him and thrust him against the wall. In agony, he met the eyes of a smoky figure who advanced menacingly. Transformed into a demon, the figure, now known as Jairyu, inquired about his intentions. He shared that he had heard of the preparations for the prophet's trials occurring there and inquired if he was mistaken. Yaksha taunted him, bursting into laughter. Yaksha ridiculed him, saying he'd heard about the regressor who had slain 666,666 high-class demons. He asked if he believed they wouldn't be aware of it because they knew everything. Yaksha altered the timeline and warned him that he was in trouble now. He emphasized that he couldn't just do as he pleased since his actions disrupted the intricate chessboard crafted by the higher phases, only earning their rage. He brutally wounded Yaksha's hands, complaining about the stench. Yaksha cried out in pain, and he revealed his intention to sever Yaksha's hand, but he admitted that his body wasn't ready for that yet. He also acknowledged not possessing any special runes, which made sense. Yaksha, in agony, cursed at him and expressed his ignorance regarding time regression, stating that it was the phases who had allowed it to happen. He questioned whether they'd be angered and whether he thought he cared about being like them. When Yaksha launched an attack, he effortlessly struck Yaksha, leaving him bewildered. He repeated the action, mocking Yaksha for not understanding the essence of being a regressor. He clarified that being a regressor meant he had already completed the quest, and it signified that his hand had already taken the lives of 666,666 high-class demons. Yaksha began to sweat, realizing that his Yaksha race thrived on consuming the fears of others, yet now, he himself was terrified of a human. He comprehended that this fear would weaken him over time, causing him to shrink. He couldn't help but smile, acknowledging the irony of it all. This revelation struck fear into Jairyu, who was shrinking in size as he continued to ridicule him. With a grim smile, he reminded Jairyu that two important facts needed to be conveyed. First, his race would not be permitted to harm any humans before the gates opened. Second, Jairyu should think twice before attempting to harm him once the Hellgates unleashed their horrors. He referred to Jairyu by his true name, sending shockwaves through the demon. Jairyu's sweating brow betrayed his mounting trepidation. In disbelief, he wondered if he was Jairyu's master or servant. Narrowing his eyes, he confirmed that their connection ran deep. The mere thought of that human's power sufficed to incite dread in Jairyu. With a knowing smile, he recalled that his powers had not disappeared. He contemplated the shop, realizing that it was intended for the prophets. As he surveyed the items, he mused about their exorbitant prices. At his current rate of acquiring one head per monster, he could never afford any of these items. But soon, with 1 million heads, he would possess a wealth of demon heads. Jairyu asked about his intentions, remarking that he seemed unable to collect heads, leaving him unable to purchase anything. Ryu and Namgung found themselves in a perplexing situation. Namgung pointed at a peculiar scroll, leaving Ryu utterly confused. He asked Ryu to give it to him, which left Ryu momentarily speechless. Ryu thought Namgung had gone insane and questioned why he should give the scroll to him when it simply read friendliness. To Ryu's surprise, Namgung stuck a sword in his arm and then slapped him in the face. Ryu, now angry, demanded to know why he would ever gift such a thing and if he couldn't read the word friendliness. In response, Namgung simply threw money at Ryu, further confusing him. Ryu asked what it was, and Namgung explained it was 20 million and promised 80 million more if Ryu did well. However, Ryu tossed the money aside with a disgusted noise. He told Namgung that in about 3 days, the pieces of paper wouldn't mean anything. Namgung glared at Ryu, urging him to trust him and stating that, 2 years later, the money would save his life on a pitch-black night. This left Ryu stunned, and he questioned what the pitch-black night meant. Namgung cryptically replied that he might not know, but he did and that he knew what had value and what didn't. Later, he assured Ryu that money would always have value, even when Hellgates open. Ryu began to sweat, pondering Namgung's words and the money. He wondered if Namgung was serious, as the paper currency held little value in their world. Frustrated, Ryu asked if Namgung might be lying. Namgung responded by pulling out the sword again, causing Ryu to shout in pain. He reminded Ryu that it was his choice whether to trust him or not and added that, 2 years later, Ryu would wish he had said yes. Ryu called him evil, worse than the Naga people, and questioned Namgung about his knowledge of the Nagas. Namgung was clearly rattled. Ultimately, Ryu handed over the scroll and asked Namgung what he planned to do with it. Namgung explained that he would use it to record things and gain entry into the prophet's trial. Ryu considered it nonsense but left the scene, voicing his hope that Namgung knew what he was doing. As they continued, Ryu felt something unusual and activated the scroll. Their space dimension collapsed, and Namgung told Ryu he was going to meet the phases. Ryu, despite his unease, followed him. They walked deeper into the collapsed space dimension, and Ryu realized Namgung was glaring at him. Namgung questioned why Ryu was following him, to which Ryu replied that he was curious about the outcome, wanting to see what kind of death Namgung would meet. Ryu also questioned if he could ask one thing. Namgung inquired about the question, and Ryu explained that he understood Namgung's knowledge of the prophet's test and the ruin language came from memories of his past life. He believed Namgung was attempting to steal the prophet's privilege. This revelation prompted Ryu to question if Namgung felt any remorse for what he was doing. Namgung, however, made it clear that he had no regrets. Then he remembered the ghost whale Choi Hui-Su, an unrivaled entity and one of the 8 martial stars. He had numerous undead monsters and was nearly immortal on par with the strongest of the 8 martial stars, Alec, but to people he was just another trash they needed to kill because he was a psychopath. In order to use undead monsters, he would need corpses as a basic requirement, and Choi Hui-Su experimented with living humans to create good quality. Corpses needed that to him as well. He told Ryu that he doesn't feel sorry at all, making Ryu tell him that he is a cold-hearted person. They continued walking while Ryu told him that no matter how great he was in his past life right now he is just an ordinary human and if it were him he'd be careful. Riot told him if only he knew his doors he walked into. He kept silent but thought of course he did the one who tormented him for 18 years. Suddenly they heard a voice telling them they're unwelcome visitors. The system showed him that he had entered the premises of the tamer of the 7 snakes. The voice asked Ryu why he had brought a human there, making Ryu sweat in fear. The voice told him that only the prophet was allowed in there and he was not the prophet he chose. He told the voice that not choosing him was his biggest mistake and he should have chosen him from the beginning. Suddenly a large eye looked at him. Ryu told the voice that Namgung is the regressor and the murderer who killed 666 high-level demons. The voice told him that he is the one who overturned their game board and he is not qualified to be the prophet. He told the voice to see for himself because he's probably better than that Choi Hui-Su guy. He picked the eyes, scanned his memories and sought his past when his daughter was being devoured whole. The voice laughed and asked him if the regressor who changed the timeline was one of his followers. He bent down and launched at the eyes while saying to think before speaking. Then he stabbed it, making Ryu shocked in amazement. He told it that he's not a follower of his. While the eyes released a lot of smoke, he landed on the ground and the voice was surprised. He slowly got up and the voice asked him what happened for him to possess that power. Just like he thought even if it's a high being it doesn't know everything. He thought that power confirmed his regression and he wondered if that might be a reward for his devotion to living through that hell. Suddenly a hand snapped and the place they were standing and was surrounded by purple flames. He glared at the eyes that were looking at him. The voice in the center asked why he had that power. He walked closer and told the voice that Choi Hui-Su, the prophet he chose, passed it to him. The snake owner thought it was interesting and that the regressor was a devoted slave of his. He smiled and told Namgung that he had the right to have a conversation with him. Then he tried to remember the man who created the question, remembered that there was someone like that. The owner of the 7 snakes told him that the one who made it is probably an observer of the sun and moon, and he thought it was a useless achievement. The owner of the 7 snakes told him he was deeply touched that he had overcome that roadblock and had come to him himself, but he told him too bad because he had already chosen a prophet and his decisions were absolute. But Namgung told him it wasn't and asked if he didn't know the requirement for regressing, making him ask what he meant. Namgung explained that being the only survivor meant he had a unique opportunity. He assured Ryu that he wasn't there to beg for the position of prophet but to offer him a chance. If Ryu didn't choose him, that was fine, but he would bring victory to other high beings, and the first prophet Namgung would select would be the first to face elimination. This sent shivers down Ryu's spine, and he implored him to stay calm. The owner of the 7 snakes slowly rose, his fury visible. He inquired if Namgung was threatening him, adding that he could end his life right then and there. With a stern expression, he warned that Namgung could become a common enemy of the high beings, which would be a less favorable starting point for his journey. He demanded to know why he should choose Namgung. Namgung responded by explaining that this was how he could emerge as the victor in the game. He was aware that the high beings couldn't regard him as an enemy under their established rules. Namgung emphasized that even though he was clueless when the gate of hell first opened, he had survived until now and was confident he would do so again. The owner of the 7 snakes expressed his approval, and then Choi Huisu suddenly appeared and inquired about his whereabouts. Upon learning the stranger's identity, the owner of the 7 snakes promptly crushed Choi Huisu. He announced his decision to change profits, and with Choi Huisu eliminated, the system acknowledged Ryu's selection. A large magical circle materialized beneath him, signifying his acceptance as the snake's prophet. He smiled, believing he had succeeded. They later found themselves in a room known as the Triad Poison Doors, a treasure house belonging to the snakes. The owner of the 7 snakes informed him that the only door he could open was the copper one, but he was welcome to claim anything he desired. After all, the prophets were meant to lead the people. When the carnival began, Namgung turned to his companion and asked if the hellish journey they were embarking on felt like a festival to him. The reply came not from just any guy but from a man named Jor. He gazed at Jor and realized that this was just the beginning, and he'd use every resource available to him. Together, they pushed forward through the mysterious door, leaving Ryu behind. Ryu's knees felt like jelly just from the sight of it, but the others continued chatting as if it were an everyday stroll. As the door closed behind them, Ryu sank to the ground. Later, the door opened, and Namgung's voice called Ryu back to reality. It was time to move on. The portal took them back underground, and Ryu couldn't help but wonder what had transpired inside while he sorted through his inventory. Namgung explained that he had acquired an item, the Monarch Lyrics headpiece, and the system labeled it as legendary. It had once belonged to a supremely arrogant king in history. The system revealed that its power could be harnessed, but at the cost of one's arrogant sins. When worn by the living, it drained their life force, and for the deceased, it granted immense strength. Ryu questioned the choice of such an item, deeming it utterly useless for the living. In response, he asked Ryu to reveal the contents of his pouch. Ryu was taken aback by the request and questioned the significance of the heads he had collected. His companion calmly stated that he had gathered an impressive 100,000 heads, leaving Ryu momentarily stunned. The next query was whether he had obtained these heads from the master of the snakes, to which Namgung confirmed Jor's involvement. Ryu couldn't help but lament how they charged exorbitant prices for even the most trivial things. But then came the shocker. Ryu inquired about the price paid for amassing 100,000 heads. His companion, with a confident smile, revealed that he hadn't paid anything, rather, they had paid him back. During his conversation with Jor, he had been granted the heads. This wasn't without a cost, though. In exchange, he was tasked with a quest equivalent to the weight of regressing or slaying 666,666 demons, the Red Wax, a legendary quest of epic proportions. He opened it, and the system notified him of receiving a legend-grade quest and an added hidden quest, 7 serpent incarnations. Rai couldn't help but wonder what Namgung had acquired. He asked Ryu why he seemed flustered, reminding him that he had instructed him to hand over the pouch. Panicking, Ryu inquired about what Rai needed, and in response, Rai requested a usable sword with unique characteristics, preferably at least a rare-grade weapon. Ryu presented 2 swords. The first was Widow's Eye, a rare-grade blade with an intriguing history. It was once a gift from a late husband to a noblewoman, and the blade was tainted with poison, priced at 89,000 heads. The cause of the husband's demise remained a mystery. The second option was the Executioner's Beheading Blade, another rare-grade sword that had seen over 1,800 swings at the pillory. It still carried an aura of unquenched vengeance, stained with blood. This one was priced at 77,000 heads, but it came with a warning: it could turn its wielder into a homicidal maniac if they lacked strong character. Ryu opted for the Executioner's Beheading Blade, dismissing the need for the extensive backstory. In his experience, long histories often meant curses. Ryu concurred, stating that the sword was relatively cheap for that very reason. Rai planned to use the remaining heads to purchase a bag, but Ryu generously offered to provide it. Rai appreciated Ryu's friendship, which he considered far more valuable than the modest bag. Placing the newly acquired sword in his inventory, Rai inquired about the time. Ryu, now back in his old man form, confirmed it was 3 o'clock. They continued their journey, and Rai questioned the deserted nature of their surroundings. Ryu explained that this area was enclosed by a protective barrier. Ryu commended Ryu for his excellent work, ensuring he wouldn't be late, providing a sense of relief. Intrigued, Ryu inquired about Rai's intentions, suspecting he might have something planned after procuring the sword. He pondered whether Rai aimed to hunt down the prophets. Namgung, with a cheerful disposition, clarified his goal: to rescue his daughter, leaving Ryu baffled. Waving goodbye, he informed Ryu that school was concluding for the day, further deepening the mystery. For 2 days leading up to the impending opening of the Hellgate, he spent quality time with his daughter. They indulged in shopping, played together, and savored a moment of normalcy in their otherwise chaotic lives. The day before the fateful event, his daughter, Saman, inquired if today was the day they had talked about. He nodded in confirmation. Saman, thoughtful and caring, expressed concern about their survival supplies. She insisted on contributing her allowance to ensure they were well prepared. He then asked her if she believed in what he had told her, and she replied with unwavering support, assuring him that she was always on his side. A warm smile spread across his face, and he gently took her hand. Later, at Daejeon National Cemetery, he was greeted by a man named Myung-hun, who saluted him with respect. They reminisced about the time since their military discharge, and Myung-hun remarked that he was still the same person. He seemed prepared to return to duty if the need arose. He playfully dismissed the idea, and Myung-hun inquired about Saman's well-being. While sharing a drink, he mentioned that Saman was resting in the car, explaining that he intentionally allowed her to sleep as today would not be a pleasant sight to witness. Myung-hun wondered if he was referring to the sight of his own face, to which he cryptically replied that there was a specific reason he chose to meet there rather than in Seoul. After a moment of silence, he called out Myung-hun's name, signaling the importance of what he was about to say. Myung-hun was taken aback and questioned if the world was on the brink of an apocalypse and if he expected him to believe it. With a serious tone, he expressed his wish that he was merely joking, leaving Myung-hun bewildered and anxious. Suddenly, a deafening noise echoed around them, causing the surrounding people to wonder about the commotion. Myung-hun urged haste in leaving, but his attention was captured by the sight of Namgung drawing a sword. With determination, he declared his intent to eliminate the approaching threat. A group of goblins swiftly closed in, and panic erupted among the onlookers. Myung-hun implored him to flee, but he simply called out his friend's name. As the goblins closed in, he prepared to face them, instructing Myung-hun to survive. Myung-hun's worried call echoed, but before he could finish his sentence, a swift slash, he skillfully decapitates all the goblins, leaving Myung-hun stunned. The goblin heads lay at his feet, and fear fills Myung-hun's eyes. Seeing his friend's reaction, he urgently instructs Myung-hun to go and bring Saman to safety. Myung-hun questions his intentions, but he simply locks eyes with him and pleads for compliance. Myung-hun swallows hard and salutes him, replying, "Yes, sir." With that, Myung-hun dashes away, assuring him he'll return. Later, as a woman faces a goblin about to strike her down, he swiftly intervenes, eliminating the threat. As he looks up in bewilderment, a massive eye appears in the sky. The eye releases more goblins, inciting panic among the people, who scatter in all directions. Recollections of Jor's advice flood his mind. Jor had told him that as the protege of the Seventh Serpent's prodigy, he would often be faced with decisions involving lives. He had advised him to prioritize his own interests because that's the path the prodigy must tread no matter what he does. He might be labeled a hypocrite. To escape that fate, he believed he needed strength, even if it meant becoming a hypocrite one day. With determination, he activates his powers and implores the spirits around him for help. He asks them if they can once again assist him in this crucial moment. He then utters the words, claiming to possess power greater than anyone in the land. The spirit of their homeland heeds his call, and a red light emerges from the graveyards. The red lights converge and fly towards him, merging into his being. The system informs him that Level 2 soul detection has been activated, and friendly spirits resonate with him. Gritting his teeth, the system further informs him that Level 2 soul has been triggered, and the spirits of the memorial rise within him. The red light dissipates, and the system announces that he can now use soul summon at Level 2, with the capacity to summon spirits exceeding his initial limit of 3. He activates his summoning, and 3 spectral soldiers rise from the underground. Then, he activates his monarch lyrics headpiece, covering his summons in armor. All of his summoned spirits pledge their loyalty to him. Meanwhile, goblins continue their relentless attack on the fleeing people. Myung-hun, carrying Saman on his back, observes the unending wave of goblins and wonders if Namgung is handling them alone. He glances at Saman and marvels at her peaceful slumber amidst the chaos, silently hoping she remains unharmed. Suddenly, another shock courses through him as he witnesses the eye pouring out yet another swarm of goblins. From his side, a goblin launches an attack, but to his relief, Namgung's summon decapitates it just in time. Grinning widely, he looks back and calls out Namgung's name, eager to understand the situation. He questions Namgung about the people alongside him. Namgung responds, "I'll explain everything in detail later. For now, take my sword." Confused, Myung-hun asks for clarification. Namgung explains that there are still goblins around and recalls Myung-hun's promising talent in kendo. He inquires if Myung-hun can handle the sword. Myung-hun hesitates but ultimately accepts the sword, realizing that he made a promise to his master not to wield a sword again. However, the need to save people outweighs his oath. With a sense of remorse towards his master, he shouts, "Cry, Hell's Punisher." Awkwardly, they exchange glances, and Myung-hun asks about the name of the sword. Later, some survivors find themselves perched atop the wall while goblins lurk below. They wonder why the police haven't arrived, expressing their desire to stay alive. A child's cries draw the attention of his mother, who attempts to descend. However, a man restrains her, emphasizing the need to save those who are still alive. He questions her destination, but she tearfully pleads with him to release her. As a goblin prepares to strike down the child, Myung-hun intervenes in the nick of time, slashing the goblin to pieces. He instructs the child to reunite with his mother, and she offers her heartfelt thanks. Observing Myung-hun's adept skills, he concludes that his powers should remain concealed. He entrusts the responsibility of leading the people to Myung-hun, acknowledging his past role as the leader of the armed guardians clan, Choi Myung-hun of the Tice and Sword. He intends to operate from the shadows. Together, they efficiently eliminate the remaining goblins. Myung-hun, fueled by rage, launches a ferocious attack, driving his sword into a goblin's head. The goblins collapse around them, and Myung-hun contemplates whether that's the last of them. He takes a moment to rest, relieved. However, their respite is abruptly interrupted by a thunderous growl. Bewildered, he glances around, puzzled by the unexpected sound. They believed they had dealt with all the goblins. His gaze shifts to the side, where Namgung wears a smile, suggesting that something formidable has arrived. The goblin warrior, brimming with fury, glares at them, signaling a new and menacing challenge.